Hey guys, it's Mike. As you know, I adopted my pup Rocky from a local rescue. Now, when people asked me what kind of dog Rocky was, I was always stumped. I used an Embark dog DNA test to decode my most puzzling questions about Rocky. You can also learn about your dog's inner secrets with Embark, the highest-rated dog DNA test. Unlock over 350 breeds and screen for over 200 genetic health risks. Save $50 on a breed and health kit with promo code KIT at embarkvet.com. Again, that's promo code KIT.
At Lowe's, we're your go-to for great gardening values every day. That's why we've lowered our price on select bagged mulch, now starting at just $2.88 a bag. Mulch helps prevent weeds and retains moisture, and when you put it down around trees, shrubs, and flower beds, you'll see how beautiful it makes your outdoor space. Just in time to welcome back family and friends. Shop online and pick up in store. Lowe's, home to the best part of summer. Selection and product availability vary by location. While supplies last, U.S. only. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
It just makes you realize how strong you really are when you have to be. And I think that a lot of people don't ever find their edge, or they don't really know what they're capable of.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Hope you're doing all right. Today is Throwback Thursday, and we are doing an episode from a handful of years ago with Robyn Benincasa. Robyn is one of those people, she's been on the show before a few times. She's one of those people that really just kicks all the excuses out of the way for you. You know, she's had some challenges herself. She has an unbelievable career that Kurt is going to tell you about. He was the host of this episode. But she is certified badass. There's really no other way to put it. And she is motivating as heck, and is just going to get your butt in gear to get out there and make your adventure happen. You know, at the end of the day, we all do what we really want to, you know, whether that's scrolling on your phone or watching TV or eating a bunch of chips, or, you know, using those few minutes you have in between when the kids go to bed and you need to go to sleep, you know, using that to build something or to do a workout or to really fit in time to get closer to your next adventure. We all end up really doing what we want to. And Robyn's one of those people that help you stay motivated and get motivated and reevaluate your life to make adventures happen. So that's what this show's about, and so I'm pleased to re-feature this episode. It's been a while, and so I thought, hey, it'd be a cool time to feature it. And also, before we get started, let me make you aware of one of our new sponsor, Frost River. They make, for the last 20 years, actually, over 20 years, they've been making handcrafted handbags and backpacks and totes of all different kinds. It's American-made, solar energy powered facility, and the material is like leather to wax canvas. They use brass hardware. It's all premium stuff, and they actually sent me a backpack, a day pack in the mail today. Total surprise. There was a very long handwritten note by some folks there. And I was just very impressed with the backpack itself. I actually needed a day pack, funny enough. So it felt like an early Father's Day present, honestly. It had a stitched outline of the state I live in, which was really just a nice touch. And I could tell that, you know, these people are serious about being a high-quality company and being good people. And that's what I realize now. Who I want to support with my business is good people. So Frost River has been around for a while, making this gear for a reason. They're doing a great job, and they're obviously very good people. And so if you'd like to support them, I would definitely love for you to check out frostriver.com/adventuresports and use the code ADVENTURE at checkout if you want to get free shipping on your next order. But please check it out. They've got a lot to offer. These are great gifts for the folks in your life who love adventure, need good gear, need high quality stuff, but maybe they don't buy it for themselves like me. You know, I'm pretty rough on stuff. I can be. So I need pretty rugged gear, pretty solid stuff that's going to last a long time. And it was a wonderful surprise to get that in the mail, and I'm very excited to put it to use. And it just goes to show the kind of people they are. And that's who I want to start supporting with my funds, or continue supporting. So if you'd like to support them as well, high quality stuff. They got their ducks in a row. They know what they're doing as a business. They've been around a while. Check out FrostRiver.com. Again, /Adventure Sports. Use the code ADVENTURE at checkout. All right, let's get into today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Kurt Linville. Today we have two-time world champion adventure racer Robyn Benincasa. Robyn holds 3 world records for distance paddling. I'll let her explain that. She's an inspirational speaker extraordinaire. Awesome. New York Times Bestselling Author. How Winning Works is her book. She was in the Eco Challenge, winning both Borneo and Ecuador. She's done 40 expedition-length adventure races. Robyn has an organization called World Class Teams, and she's really excited about a new project called Project Athena Foundation. She's done 9 Ironmans, and she's a professional firefighter. Wow, Robyn, how do you fit it all in?
It's a little crazy. There's way too many miles on my body, that's for sure. But it's the best thing in life to have adventures and inspire other people, and I will never stop doing it, ever, ever, ever.
Well, that's awesome. Will you take a few minutes to fill in any gaps I have there? I mean, what got you started in adventure racing, for example?
I was doing Ironman for the longest time. I graduated college, moved out to the West Coast, and of course, everybody was either running or riding everywhere, so I needed a new sport. And I discovered triathlon, actually. And so my early endurance career was all the Ironman races. And then I read about adventure racing in Runner's World one day. And I knew that the longer the race was, my triathlon, the longer the race was, the more competitive I was. And so when I heard about a sport where, it was 6 to 10 days long, I thought that it might be something I was good at. Of course, I hadn't really mountain biked. I hadn't really paddled. I didn't know anything about ropes or rappelling or ascending. I had to learn all that stuff. But I just had a feeling that it was going to be the sport that I was meant to do with my genetics and the types of things that I love to do. So took a whack at it. And my first big race was in the jungle in Borneo in the predecessor to the Eco Challenge called the Raid Galois in year of the Lord 1994.
Wow.
One of the first people in the pool, in the sport, and I was hooked.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. I know that people may be familiar with the Eco Challenge from watching them on television, and I just watched a little bit, some of the clips that are on your website of some of the challenges that you went through there. And I have to say, impressive, adventurous, inspirational, all of those things. So this opened up a whole new world for you. From the expedition-length adventure races, you've gained a lot of experiences that you use to inspire others. So will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're a lot of people, especially listening to this, are endurance athletes, and they love doing, kind of these compelling challenges, and that was my background as well. The real catch to adventure racing and what makes it so unique and inspiring in a lot of ways is that you have to race with these 3 or 4 other teammates, depending on the rules. And it's not relay style. So what was initially so interesting, but also such a transition for me, was going from being an individual athlete to being a team person. And in the first few years, it was kind of frustrating because, when I was the stronger person, I would be frustrated. When I was the weaker person, I would be frustrated. And, so there was like a whole race of frustration. But then as I started racing with some of the best people in the world, and I was lucky enough to become a part of some of the top teams, that I realized that they weren't any better than anybody else out there as athletes in terms of their background or resumes. But what they were better teammates. And that opened my eyes to a whole new world of how to be successful in any endurance endeavor, which is really our lives, our businesses, our relationships, was much more about synergy with other people than, not just walking side by side, together towards a common goal. It was really about how are we going to take care of each other and carry each other and bring each other up at our lowest moments and use our strength to be the strength for someone else, and to not just be moving through our lives or businesses with each other, but genuinely for each other. And I realized, pretty quickly that was the difference. Yes, certainly everyone was fantastic athletes. You certainly can't take that away. But what put my teammates on the podium for so many years in the sport was just their incredible teamwork and leaving their egos at the start line and doing whatever it took for each other to get across the finish line.
Oh, that's really cool. So I want to dive back into this a little bit more deeper later in the show, but let's go back to the expedition length adventure races. What does it feel like to be in a race that's that extreme, that lasts for days and days and days? Take us there. Let us know what that's about.
It's it's so hard to even explain. I mean, well, people finish these things. It's like I call it re-entry, because it really feels like you've been on the moon for a week, 10 days, and you're just coming back into a world where there's warm food and beds and shelter. And when you undertake one of these, you are basically setting aside any of the comforts that you've grown to know and love in your life, like shelter and food and sleep. And what you're giving that up for is this kind of higher level connection to others and striving for something that no individual could ever accomplish alone. And so in that way, it keeps people coming back again and again, because it's nothing you can get in real life. We're literally moving 22 or 23 hours a day for 7 to 10 days through this course. And at first people tried to not sleep, but we realized that was not the good strategy, because then you were lost. So, we discovered that you kind of need a one REM cycle every 24 hours, which is about 90 minutes, to kind of keep your head together. And so that's sort of the formula that some of the teams developed, was sleeping, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours every 24, but that was really it. And so your body is breaking down, your mind is breaking down, but you still have to get to the next checkpoint and do it right and find your way through it, because you're navigating your way through this entire course and getting each other through the course. And it's almost like a religious experience in a way, where it's just a whole another world than you've ever experienced in your life. It's not just about endurance. It's about, teamwork and strategy and keeping each other in the game. And it's really quite an epic thing. And that's why all of us, even though we were, broken and out of cartilage and everything else, we just kept coming back again and again to have that experience of, racing with one heart and one mind with 3 other people, that we're going to succeed at all costs. And it kind of makes you realize what some of our original explorers and adventurers, must have gone through. The nice thing for us, though, is you have a radio and a helicopter's coming to get you. Ernest Shackleton and those folks didn't have any of that. But it's nice to, in a way, be able to experience some of what our earliest real explorers did, but in a kind of interesting competitive format.
Story Musgrave on our interview made mention of athletes like you, and he said, what I did was nothing compared to those people. I think he's generous, because what he did took humanity in a whole new direction. But I think his point is well made, that when you're doing something this extreme, it takes something special deep inside. You've got to reach inside and find something that can carry you through. What was that for you?
Well, obviously, a lot of it is internal drive, but at some point that's gone. Certainly physically and spiritually and emotionally, every single person out there gets to the end of their rope at some point. And I think the driving force is always, wow, I can't let these 3 other people down. And ultimately in the long run, I can't let myself down. And there's, I think, just this if you really can keep putting one foot in front of the other, or one pedal stroke in front of the other, or one paddle stroke in front of the other, you can get there. And it's such a metaphor for life in so many ways. I mean, when you come home from one of these things, you kind of have this feeling of, wow, nothing in my life for a long time I can ever say that was hard. I can't say it was hard to wake up early for this meeting, or it was hard to put 12 hours in at the office, or it was hard to, do anything really, because you always have this frame of reference. Like, well, 2 months ago I was on a glacier at 3 a.m. trying to wake up and pull my skin off the ice so I could keep running. So, this is not so bad. But it's such it just makes you realize how strong you really are when you have to be. And I think that a lot of people don't ever find their edge, or they don't really know what they're capable of. And I think a lot of endurance athletes do. I think that's what draws us, to things like that, is to say, wow, I'm so much stronger than I ever dreamed. And it's so much fun to find that out and to inspire other people to find out how strong they really are. Because we don't use much of our capacity in day-to-day life in America. We don't use much of our capacity to be strong. And, I think that's a lot of the draw for all of us.
So if someone wants to get started and they want to go from couch potato, right, to adventure racer, what's your recommendation? How can people pursue this?
Obviously, you got to get into some kind of baseline fitness with, just general fitness and stamina. But you need to learn a little bit about rappelling. You need to learn a little bit about paddling. You need to learn a little bit about mountain biking. And maybe just even take just local classes to just get a base of all those things. And then you don't have to start as extreme as you had to back in the day. It was pretty much your only option was, here's your 10-day race, take it or leave it. But now there's adventure races and all kinds of different multi-sport races and formats down to even 2 hours, where, you're paddling, running, rappelling, orienteering. And that's another thing to take up, which is also really fun, is orienteering, where and they have clubs in every city in America. They have orienteering clubs where you learn to use a map and a compass and quickly chart your course and bag these checkpoints. Because if you want to be a valuable adventure racer, two of the most important things that you can do is become an orienteer and a paddler. Those are the two things that teams need most often. But you can go on to USARA, which is the U.S. Adventure Racing Association, usara.com, and find out where the races are in your area. And at first, you just grab a few friends and see who loves it and see who doesn't love it. And then, in the race, you discover who the other strongest people are. You look at the other teams and you look at the winners, and eventually you sort of just move your way up the food chain, and you ask some other people to race. And if you're great at it, you can move up the food chain pretty quickly. And, you don't have to do the big crazy races anymore. I mean, a lot of people love the 24-hour races. So it's, you get out there on a Friday, you race Saturday, come home Sunday, and you can be back at work, but you still have that experience of kind of pushing yourself with a great team.
Wow. Take us to a race, a memory that you have that really impacted you, something that made you say, you know what, I love this and I want to keep doing it. Can you tell us a story of one of your personal experiences?
I don't know whether I was loving it at the time. My first race with the best team in the world, who at the time were called Eco Internet. It was a big race, the Raid Gauloise in Ecuador, and it was kind of the main big game in town. And it was the first time that they ever had an adventure race go to a huge mountain peak. And on day 3, after running for 75 miles, starting at 14,000 feet elevation, we had to summit a 19,700 foot active volcano. So we had to go to almost 20,000 feet after minimal sleep 3 days into a race. And we were just all an absolute disaster, as you can imagine. And we all looked pretty terrible coming into the hut at 15,000 feet where you started the climb. And we were at the front of the race with the French. And I was just a total train wreck. I was asthmatic and I was blue and I couldn't breathe. And it was just such I was falling apart. Just my lungs and my oxygen. And I just was like, I can't go any higher. I mean, I had a fever. It turned out I had 102 temperature when they took my temperature later. I mean, I was just a mess. And so in the race, we looked so bad at the front of the race that, the top two teams looked so awful 3 days in that they changed the rules of the sport right then and there to say, you know what, all 5 of your teammates don't have to get to the top. As long as 3 people get to the top, you can continue. Because up until this point in adventure racing, if one person wasn't able to complete the race, your whole entire team was disqualified, which are still the rules that stand today. But they made an exception because it was an out and back to kind of say, well, you can leave somebody here at the hut, but you're going to have a 5-hour penalty.
Wow.
Or you can take somebody halfway up to 18,000 feet. And if they need to come back down, you're going to have a 2-hour penalty. So they kind of threw in some strategy at this point. But the one thing that they said is, you guys all look so bad that we actually need to have some kind of baseline about, your level of your capability to climb any higher than 15 right now. So they took out an oxygen saturation device, an O2 sat. And right there, they made a rule at 1 a.m. as we were about to go out the hut, which was the first, gate that was open for climbing. And it was just the 2 teams that were in the hut. And they said, you have to have an oxygen saturation of 71% or more to continue. And, being a firefighter EMT, I know that, when someone has an O2 sat that's like 92 or less, we're taking them to the hospital with lights and sirens. So, it was crazy on their part to even say 71. So both teams are leaving the hut at 1 a.m. to start the summit, and everyone's O2 sat is a mess, like early 90s, late 80s, mid 80s. And then I put my finger in the O2 sat and it said 71%.
Oh.
Yeah, so now it was confirmed by everyone that I was certainly not fit to keep climbing. And, much less, I didn't even know if I could keep living where I was standing at that point. And so I looked at my teammates and of course I didn't want to get the 5-hour penalty, even though I'm dying, I was still competitive. So I said, well, hey guys, we're going to be strapped up for glacier travel anyway. Maybe you guys can just drag me to 18,000 feet. So we only have the 2-hour penalty.
Oh no.
And so they said, okay. So we got rigged up for, glacier travel, which everyone had to be anyway. But I don't remember much of those next several hours because it was sideways hail. It was dark. I had a huge fever. I couldn't breathe. And they were literally dragging me up this mountain. God bless them. And so at 18,000 feet, I thought I was going to go back down. The sun had just come up and everyone's sort of milling around at this checkpoint. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to get down. And this was sort of the moment that kind of changed my whole career. I mean, at this point, I was thinking I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be racing with the best team in the world. They shouldn't have picked me. It was a mistake. I'm not good enough. And I'm in the snow and I'm like crying and eating my cookie and I'm wondering how I'm going to get back down. And my friend Robert Nagel came over. He was team captain, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "You ready to go, Rob?" And I said, I don't know how I'm going to get down, Robert. And he said, "Oh, no one's told you yet." Like, what do you mean no one's told me yet? What's happening? He said, "Well, the doctor at the checkpoint is saying that John, who's John Howard, another of the greats of the greats, amazing man. He said, the doctor's telling John Howard and I that we have high altitude pulmonary edema."
Oh, no.
And he's telling us we have to go down. Said, so the only way for us to stay in the race is if you go up.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about a complete mental turnaround, and he looked right at me and he said, "You can do it, Rob. You can do this." And because he believed, I believed. Like I was like, well, if the best guy in the sport believes, maybe he's right. maybe I can do this. And the man, like in that moment, like literally changed my whole life, like my whole perspective of myself, my whole being. Like you actually see in the video at that point that I stand up and I start nodding my head. Yes, yes. Like just all the nonverbal cues was that I was going up, and I believed that I could do it. And he and John went back down, and we got the 4 hours of penalties, and myself and the other two guys went up and summited it at 19,700 feet. Still just ahead of the French. And it was just kind of the reason that I bring up that story is it just shows you the power of the mind and the power of great leadership. When someone really believes in you that much, believes in you so much that they convince you, that you can do this. And when they give you that challenge and that respect to say, you know what, the best people in the sport aren't going to be able to pull this off. It's up to you now. And when you allow someone to rise to the occasion like that, just the power of that. And literally in that moment, I went from being kind of a girl from sea level who didn't even think I was going to make it through the day, much less through the race and win the race, and that I didn't belong there. Suddenly I started thinking like, I belong here. This is my team. This is the level in the sport at which I belong. And it happened like literally over a span of 30 seconds.
What a transformation.
Yeah. I mean, amazing. And we went on to, obviously it was 9 days for the win, that race, like literally 9 days for the win. And we finished just a couple hours ahead of the French.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
Discovery Plus has what you're hungry for, with new original series and a supersized collection of favorites. It's the largest collection of food shows anywhere, all for only $4.99. Discovery Plus, the streaming home of food, plus so much more. Start your free trial.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. During our summer sale, save up to $500 on select Sleep Number 360 Smart Beds, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
That's a remarkable story. There are people all over the world who need that turnaround. They need someone to affirm them to the point that they say, I can, I will.
Mm-hmm. And that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing in the world to do, is to give that gift that my guys gave me for so many years.
In the Adventure Sports Podcast, one of our major themes and purposes is to try to encourage people to go out and challenge themselves and find out what they're made of, and to take the lessons learned back to everyday life so that they can live richer, fuller, bigger lives. And this is a perfect example. It's just amazing. And you don't have to do an adventure race for 10 days.
Nobody who would do that. It's stupid.
To gain these lessons, it has to be something that is just your own personal enlargement, your own personal experience, Yeah. And so for some people, that's a walk around the block.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
More power to them. Do it, right?
Yep. Whatever it is, that's a big challenge for you on the day. Some days the big challenge is just getting out of bed and going to work and doing it. But you know what? You challenged yourself. And I think it's just so important to challenge ourselves, because you could have all the money in the world and all the things you ever wanted. But if you don't have a passion for something and you don't challenge yourself and you're not proud of yourself and you don't feel good about what you accomplished at the end of the day, you're not fully living.
Since that time, you've had some of your own personal challenges, and you've overcome them to set world records. So you developed arthritis in your hips. Yep. And this changed your life. Tell us what happened there.
Well, I thought I had, for the longest time, I thought I had pulled a hip flexor. And I was still, running through it and racing through it. And I was like, this is just weird. My hip flexor, I just pulled it. And I'm like for 7 months, I just thought I had this pulled hip flexor. And then we were in the World Championships in Scotland. And I literally got to the point where my leg wouldn't move anymore. I mean, it was just in so much pain in there because there was zero cartilage that I was at that bone scraping against bone, and my body literally wouldn't let me do it. And I had no idea what was going on. I thought, well, there goes my hip flexor. I just completely pulled it, and now my leg won't come forward anymore. And I spent the last few days of the race like manually pulling my leg forward with my hand and having my teammates tow me and carry my stuff to the finish line. It was awful. And I went home and got an x-ray, and it was literally the first moment I ever went to a doctor about it, or, an orthopedic surgeon about it. He just like popped up the x-ray and said, hey, yeah, look at this. You're out of cartilage, both hips, none left. Wow. Yeah, this is, you're probably never going to run again. And I mean, that was another life-changing 30 seconds, just like, wait, what? And so, he said, well, you're going to need both your hips replaced. And I was like, nah, just give me some 800 ibuprofens. I'm good. I'll see you in a couple of years. And he's like, you're going to see me in a couple of weeks. and I left, like, goodbye, see you in a few years. And he's like, see you next week. And, it just, cause he just knew how long it was just going to take to sink in, that it was, I just felt like just a German shepherd when their hips go bad. Like you literally couldn't, everything was locked up. I couldn't move. I couldn't sleep. I woke up in just ripping pain every night. And I knew I had to have my hips replaced. And so I had my first one done in 2007, my second one done in 2009. And at another race, of course, I hit the deck. And that was when I ran out of cartilage on the other side. And my teammates had to drag me to the finish line. So it was, and yada, 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 over the last 6 years, I've had 4 hip replacements and 2 cup replacements. And they were all just the gnarly surgery where they have to dislocate your leg to get in there and work on it. So, it's been hard, but at the same time, it also led me to some really cool, different things in my life. When faced with, you can't do the other stuff you loved, I just said, well, I'm going to find some new stuff I love then.
Well, you went on to set 3 world records paddling. What an inspiration. Tell us about these 3 records.
Well, so yeah, I got my first wild hair was to see if I was any kind of a decent paddler, because mostly in adventure racing, you're in double kayaks. And I was racing with some really top Aussies and Kiwis and just great paddlers. So we were always one of the best paddling teams in a race, but I always assumed it was the guys, that were kind of providing the power in the back there. But I always felt like I liked those sections of the races, and it was probably because we were fast, but I was like, well, maybe I can try being a paddler. So, I took a whack at, my first big race was my first big solo race was, the Yukon River Quest. And it was a race from Whitehorse to Dawson City down the Yukon River, 460 miles. And, it was kind of during the summer, so it was sort of the midnight sun thing, which was pretty cool. And I loved it. Loved. Okay, well, it sucked in parts, obviously. But at the end of the day, I mean, I loved it because I was good at it. And I did really well. And so I started, realizing that I might have a 7th sport career here in ultra distance paddling. So then I did the Missouri River 340 and absolutely loved it. The MR 340 is the longest nonstop paddling race in the world, actually. It's 340 miles down the Missouri, but it's completely nonstop, whereas the Yukon, they make you take 1 7-hour break. And I discovered a talent that I never even knew that I had. My first MR 340, thankfully, and it was a very, very cool thing, and I was so surprised. I set the women's course record, And so I was like, well, maybe I got something here. I was like just really excited to, at my age and with my metal hips, to have a brand new sport that I was good at. So then I started taking whacks at 24-hour records and was able to get the 24-hour flat water Guinness record, and then the 24-hour moving water Guinness record. And then a year and a half ago, I set the 24-hour stand-up flat water paddling record. And it's just been fun. It's just been a fun thing to do to kind of introduce the sport of stand-up to ultra endurance, or kind of following the footsteps of a couple other guys that started going down this ultra endurance road, in the stand-up world, and then in the kayaking world to kind of throw down the challenge and that's the fun thing about the Guinness 24-hour records is, it's not where people gather and all do it at the same time. Like someone might take a whack at it in China tomorrow or in Germany. So it's one of those things where you apply to Guinness and they look at your course and they tell you whether, okay, that's a flat water attempt, that's a moving water attempt, or that's an open water attempt, depending on the body of water. And then they have all kinds of things that boxes you have to check and documentation you have to provide and all these witnesses. And so it's kind of a neat way to start to have a worldwide competition, where, in your own backyard. So that's
individually, an individual worldwide competition.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's fun. I had a friend introduce me to doing those because he held all the world records in kayaking. So I started following in his footsteps, and we started setting them together. Like he'd set the men's, or he'd attempt the men's, and I'd attempt the women's at the same time. And it's been a hoot. And I think 2 of the 3 records still stand currently. So that's a fun thing for me, is to have discovered a strength as a paddler. But of course, the other neatest thing that the crazy hip setback led me to was the best thing I've ever done in my life, and that's start a nonprofit called Project Athena.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, you've already inspired us with amazing comebacks, setting world records after 4 hip replacements. And now you do inspirational speaking. You're a New York Times bestseller for How Winning Works. And you started Project Athena. Tell us about Project Athena.
I was really kind of inspired by a great friend of mine who is like one of the world's best ultra endurance athletes, a lady named, in multisport. Her name's Louise Cooper, and she is 61 now, and she will kick all of our asses. Day in, day out, around the block, any sport, you pick it, she will beat you if it's an endurance race. I mean, she's unbelievable. And not only that, but she's the nicest person on earth. And not only that, she's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And after her first kind of bout back in 98, I was truly inspired by her and her approach to not only her treatment, but her recovery, and the fact that every single day, no matter what it was, she got out of the house and kept her routine. And when she couldn't run, she walked. And when she couldn't walk, she rode her bike. And when she couldn't ride her bike, she just went to the end of the driveway and back. But every single day she did her thing. She never let that athletic side of her life go. But most importantly, she always put some huge, big, hairy, audacious adventure on her calendar, like a year away, so that in her mind, she wasn't, just having her chemotherapy treatment. She would be having her chemo and thinking about the day she was going to stand on top of Everest, or the day she was going to cross the finish line at the Marathon des Sables, or, some crazy big thing she was going to do. And so after I started having my hips replaced, kind of inspired by her, that's when I said, well, I'm going to be a paddler. I'm going to go do the Yukon River Quest, and I'm going to do the MR 340, so that in my recovery, I didn't need to run because I was a paddler now, and I had all these other great things to do. So, based on kind of that inspiration, the idea came to me that, well, maybe we can do this for other people, and it started out to be other women, like to say, yes, you're a survivor of a medical or traumatic setback, but we're going to provide this great environment for you where it's not about the setback, it's about the comeback. And we want to provide this great comeback party for you in the form of an endurance usually an endurance-related adventure, often multi-sport, which is our background, so we're good at coaching it. And just in a way that will really help you inspire and amaze yourself again and your friends and family, so that they're not worried about this weak person. They're suddenly going, holy badass. Like my wife, my mom, my sister, my friend is, not only a survivor, but they're this amazing kick-ass person that's doing these things I wouldn't even dream of. And that really gives the survivors a charge to be like, that's right, man. I'm not just a survivor. I'm going to do this thing that most normal people would never dream of. And it's going to be my signal to the world that I'm back and I'm better than ever. So what we basically do in tagline form is we help survivors live an adventurous dream as part of their recovery. And so each year we have 6 adventures that we take survivors and fundraisers on. About a third of the field are survivors, and the other 2/3 of the group are fundraisers, which we call our gods and goddesses, and our survivors are Athenas. And there are things like we have a hike called the Harbor to Harbor, where we hike from Oceanside Harbor to San Diego Harbor down the California coastline, 50 miles in 2 days. So you're hiking a marathon a day for 2 days.
Wow.
Then we have the Grand Canyon rim to rim, where we hike all the way across the Grand Canyon in 1 day. And we have the rim to rim to rim, where we hike all the way over in 1 day and all the way back the next. And then one of our really popular adventures is, we call it the Florida Keys to Recovery, where we start in Key Largo and we kayak and bike ride each day 40-ish miles or so, and 3 days later end up in Key West. So we kayak and ride 120 miles from Key Largo to Key West and camp on the beaches. And then we also have next year a Santa Barbara 24-hour adventure race, where we're going to all stay together and navigate together and paddle and ride for 24 hours in Santa Barbara. So they're all these adventures that are crazy and your family shakes their heads, but at the same time, we train you and they're totally doable for non-ultra people, just for regular cool people are doing these things. And my friends like Louise and I are their trail angels, and we train them and facilitate their success and make sure we're all doing as a team whatever it takes to get everyone across the finish line.
In some of your motivational speaking that I heard online, you told a story about when you were on one of the adventure races and your team captain, you're getting ready to run, and the team captain says, okay, everyone empty your packs. Mm-hmm. And it was that kind of teamwork. Explain what that was about for us.
Well, it was sort of the first time that I was aware of. It was the first time I raced with the best team in the world, but right before the start line, our team captain basically kind of said, you know what, everyone's carrying their own mandatory gear, but I have a different idea of the way we're going to work this. And he started taking some of the weight from some of the slower runners, myself included, started taking some of the weight, like our climbing gear, our extra shoes, anything like that, and giving it to the 2 stronger runners. And it was kind of the first time I was aware of people not just carrying their own individual gear and kind of doing the commonly understood version of teamwork, which is walking side by side towards a common goal. He had a whole different idea of the way we were gonna do this. And he basically took the bulk of the weight, handed it to the 2 strongest runners, and I was just standing there with a water bottle. And, we weren't really sure how this was going to work, but it turns out that it was absolutely, a stroke of genius, because it wasn't just, a world where everyone just looked out for themselves. He was kind of saying, well, now we're all responsible and accountable for getting each other across the finish line. And in that world where you're caring about the 3 or 4 other people around you almost as much as you care about your own performance, I mean, it's amazing, because whereas every other team had one person caring about each of their own success, on our team, we had 5 people caring about 5 people's success and looking out for each other. And when someone was struggling, we'd take more of their weight. Or if someone was strong, we discovered a cool way to make a little tow line, like one of my teammates cut a piece of bungee cord off the netting in the back of his backpack and tied it to the bottom of his backpack and made a little tail. So there's like a bungee cord tail off the bottom of his backpack, so that if someone was struggling, instead of stopping to swap out weight, the person struggling the most could just grab onto the tow line and be pulled along with the strongest person. And, throughout the entire race, we kept doing that over and over, shifting weight, tow lines, encouraging each other. And we discovered really, in that race and in that kind of yearish, the importance of not just being a bunch of world-class individuals who very often didn't get to a finish line regardless of their talents. We realized that, you got to be a strong athlete, but the most important thing is to be a strong teammate and to have the entire team, there not just with each other, but for each other. And just that tweak in thinking is what made us world-class adventure racers for years and years and years after that. We were never the best athletes. We were all in our 40s and 50s, and we came from all over the world, and we never even trained together. But it was really just that mindset of I'm going to take care of this person next to me. I'm going to care about them as much as I care about myself. That changed everything and got us through every challenge and got us through every low point. And I mean, there was almost nothing that could keep us from crossing a finish line at the top of the pack. I mean, maybe not first, but kind of in the top 5, because we slowed down less than any other team did. I mean, all the other teams had to wait for their slowest or most broken person, and we just took ours with us.
That's remarkable. Now rewind to Project Athena.
Yep.
It's this type of teamwork that allows people, I think, to be really successful when they're overcoming their own challenges. And I'm sure that you're applying that in Project Athena.
Totally. And that's kind of the neat thing. Like, I show some of our adventure racing clips in my presentations that I do for companies. And a lot of our gods and goddesses, our fundraisers, come from those audiences. And so it's neat because they've gotten to kind of hear about it, but then they get to experience that world themselves where everyone's ego is at the start line. Nobody cares if you're the strongest one. Everybody cares if you're, the most challenged one at the time. And we all travel as a pack, and there's no negativity about weakness. It's everyone just kind of gangs up on it and fixes it. People feed you, they help you drink, they take some of your water till you're recovered, and then you help them later. And a lot of people haven't been in that world. And so that's why people keep coming back, is because they don't have that same world, maybe even in their own family or in their place of business. And many people try to bring that energy and vibe back to their families and businesses. And it's just a really nice place to be that a lot of people haven't experienced before. And that's why we love it so much.
I love the concept that we're stronger together than we are apart, and the things that can be accomplished as a group that maybe we would not be able to do individually. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And when nobody cares who gets the credit, and when nobody cares who the strongest person is, like, it's funny because we've had people like in the Grand Canyon who are very wrapped around the axle with their ego, and they have to be the first person to the other side. And we've had one or two people go off the front and just disappear because they had to prove how strong they were. And they just miss the entire experience. Not only that, we could have used their strength. You can get your ego fulfilled by taking your strength and helping somebody else instead of just going off the front. You're going to get even more credit than just being the strong person going off the front. You're going to feed your ego even more if you go to the back and help that person, because everyone's going to see how awesome you are. And I can't, it hurts my brain sometimes when I see somebody walking off the front going, well, they're not only missing experience, they're also missing a moment to get what clearly they need, which is recognition. They're missing that moment too, to really be recognized by the group for how awesome you were in helping somebody else. And why wouldn't you, if you do have to satisfy an ego, why wouldn't you wrap your ego around the team's success and the group's success and helping somebody else than just getting there first? Because that doesn't do anything for the group. And in fact, like, those people are so far not a part of the group that even later the group hasn't bonded with them. And I actually had somebody come back once because they went off the front the first year and said, I feel like I missed everything. I feel like I missed everything that you guys had together, and I want to be part of that. And it was actually a girl. And so she had the experience the second time around. But,
Right
you know,
on.
yeah. I mean, you don't necessarily have to leave your ego at the start line, but wrap your ego around helping somebody else, your team's success, getting that kind of recognition, and not just getting there first.
Well, Robyn, you know what? In the end, when one is alone, trophies make very poor company.
Hell yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's true. Yep, they got there first, and then they had to sit there and be hungry until the van came an hour later. They got squat.
Exactly. Well, I am sure that our listeners could get a lot more of this sage advice if they picked up your book, How Winning Works. Do you have any promotions or special discounts for us?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to email me, I will send anyone out a book at my cost, just plus shipping, so about $12. I will send you out How Winning Works. So shoot me an email, and I will have my my person that ships out stuff get a hold of you and make sure they have the right address. And then if you come on one of our Project Athena adventures, the website is projectathena.org. Project Athena, like the goddess, .org. And you can sign up to be a god or a goddess, or if you know a survivor, we can help. They can apply also on projectathena.org and sign up for one of our adventures. And if you mention, how did you hear about us? If you mention the podcast with Kurt, that is the way that you found out about us, we will take $250 off the amount of money that you need to raise to come on an adventure, which for most of our adventures is $3,000, and we cover all your expenses aside from your flight. So we cover your food, your hotel, your transportation, your campground, whatever it is. And all you need to do is land in the airport that we tell you to land in, and we do everything else for you: rental equipment, housing, everything. So we would love to have you come on an adventure with us. And if you mention this podcast, we will. You only have to raise $2,750 instead of the $3,000.
Right on. So just mention the Adventure Sports Podcast, and you're going to fix them up.
Yep.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. Now, I've got to throw something your way that's going to be tough for you, but what is the coolest thing you've ever done?
Wow, gosh, I know. It hurt my brain right there. Well, all right, so this is something that not a lot of people know if they follow Eco Challenge, but the last night of the Borneo Eco Challenge, we paddled all night to the finish line. And it was just this epic, epic moment of being afraid we were going to be caught, but also feeling like we were in the front of the World Championships, the biggest race in the world. It was a beautiful night. It was, we felt strongly that we were on course and that we had a good chance to win. And just that incredible feeling was amazing. But then one of my teammates started shifting around a lot in the boat. Like he started like scratching and shifting and throwing his paddle down. And we're like, Isaac, what are you doing? What's going on? And he's like, I'm just so itchy, because we're wearing the same, spandex, lycra, whatever, race tops, like for now 5 days, in and out of the salt water, in and out of the bat guano, in and out of the mud, the leeches, the rivers. We all had leptospirosis, which we didn't know till the next day. And so we're all a mess, but he was so itchy and uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden we hear him going, oh yeah, that's better. That's much better. Like, Isaac, what are you doing? And so I turn around, I have my headlamp on. I turn my headlamp on. Isaac is buck naked in the boat. Like he had taken off everything. So literally we all look back and we're like, Ike. And he's like, you guys, I'm telling you, this is so much better. And the next thing you hear is the three of the rest of us throwing our paddles down in the boat, and we all took off everything. So we could just like feel the cool night air, and it was like the most epic feeling like in my entire life to not have that nasty lycra disgusting thing on anymore, and to just have this cool air over all my sores and leech scars. And we paddled all night to the finish line completely naked.
Well, that is a true example of less is more, I tell you.
We put on our jerseys for one of the checkpoints, but that was it.
Well, that's a new angle on extreme sports for sure. I love it. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Robyn, thank you very much for your time today. Your stories are amazing. You are an inspiration to me, and I know that you inspire many others. Once again, can you give us your email address and how people can get in touch with you?
Yep, it's Robyn, ROBYN, at projectathena.org. Robyn@projectathena.org is my email. My personal website is worldclassteams.com, worldclassteams.com. And the book is How Winning Works. And to come on an adventure, you go to projectathena.org. That's all the ways you can get in touch.
Right on. So I first looked for How Winning Works as an audiobook because obviously I love audio. I'm a podcaster, right? I didn't find it. Is it going to be an audiobook?
That's a fantastic question. I guess it will be at some point.
Right on. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I know that it's available everywhere else that people want to look, and if they email you, then they can get the cost plus shipping version, which is even better.
Yep,
Right
we'll send
on.
it out.
Well, Robyn, thank you again for your time today.
Thanks, Kurt. That was fun. And thanks, everyone who listened.
Until our next podcast, everyone, get out there, challenge yourself, find out what you're made of, and have some fun.
Woohoo!
Right on.
See you out there.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Attention foodies, Discovery Plus has what you're hungry for. With new original series and a supersized collection of favorites, Discovery Plus has the largest collection of food shows anywhere. With new exclusives like Bobby and Giada in Italy and Luda Can't Cook. The streaming service for everyone hungry for more. More cooking, more competition, more originals. All for only $4.99. Discovery Plus is the streaming home of food, plus so much more. Start your free trial.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. During our summer sale, save up to $500 on select Sleep Number 360 Smart Beds, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.